Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and this is The Current Buzz. Today we have a gentleman, you may know him from television. His name is Ed Davis, and he was on the national television because of the bombings in Boston. He was a commissioner. Is that what they call it, the commissioner?
Correct, yeah.
So they still call you commissioner, don't they?
They still do, yeah.
So I can call you commish.
You can call me anything you want.
Ed Davis, he was a police officer in Lowell, Massachusetts. He was superintendent of police, and then he became commissioner of Boston, Massachusetts, police commission. He was police commissioner from December 2006 to 2013. In April 15th, 2013, there was a bombing in Boston at the Boston Marathon, if you remember that. And Ed was telling me that, that people see him at the airport and they say hello to him. So if you see Ed Davis at the airport, tell him that you saw him on my show, okay?
What a great idea.
Yeah. So he'll remember that and he'll say, yeah.
I'll call you and let you know. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We're going to talk about policing in Lowell real quick, and then I'd like to jump to the bombing and the minutiae of that and what happened in that situation. But he has his own company now. It's called the Ed Davis Company, and you have a staff, and then you have consultants, and you're doing David Ortiz's investigation, as I understand it now.
Right, that's one of the investigations. We have a number of Fortune 500 companies that we work with.
I see.
But the David Ortiz case has got a lot of press recently, and we're just wrapping that investigation.
Oh, you are wrapping them. So can you break some news on my show?
I can't. You know, actually, though, there's been some speculation about what I'm going to say. And the truth of the matter is I'm not a police commissioner anymore. I work for a client, and my client is David Ortiz. So my report will go to him.
I see.
And then he can do with it what he wants.
So what are we talking about? Are we talking about a 12-page report, a 100-page report?
No. I mean, it
summary?
Well, you know, I can't get into the details of it, but it's a comprehensive review of what happened, and I think it will be helpful to my client.
Oh, okay. Very good. Okay. At least I tried.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Thanks. What's the mission of the company, basically? You said you have Fortune 500 companies working for you. Can you name the companies? Or?
Working as our client.
As a client.
We work for them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I've worked for Motorola, Deloitte. I've done work for a number of consulting companies.
I see.
But the bulk of our sort of investigative work and our work in securing facilities and people so that they're safe, that's investigations and crisis response is something that we do, but securing people, making sure that they're prepared for anything in the cyber or physical security world is the bulk of our work. Right. And our clients include Frontline at WGBH, Politico, the Boston Globe, but we also have clients in universities, Pomona College out in California, UMass Amherst.
A very good college, in fact.
Pomona College. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that on the East Coast.
Right.
But Pomona is a very good college.
Yeah.
Considered very up there in the West Coast.
Right, yeah. We're very proud of our relationship with them. And then we do sports teams. We've done work for the St. Louis Cardinals, the Boston Red Sox, the Florida Marlins.
Like what? What kind
Pittsburgh
of work
Pirates.
in regards to just security or
well, we do,
visual?
Yeah, we do security assessments. We have
see.
a team of Secret Service agents that work with us that go through the facility to make sure that it's compliant with the regulations for sports facilities.
I see.
We do policy development, so we will write policies, do training for the agencies involved.
Right.
And then we do something called red team testing, where we actually test to see if the security is doing their job. So we'll give somebody a knife and see if they can get it through.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, see if they can get it through security.
Yeah.
They'll carry a gun, try to get that through. We work with the police.
It's done all the time. I mean, even the federal government does that in regards to airports and stuff like that.
Right, yeah, the federal government mandates it. And we're really working off the new rules and regulations around cyber and physical security to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I have Admiral Mike Brown, who set up a lot of the cyber systems in the Navy and eventually in the Department of Homeland Security.
I see.
He runs my cyber division. So it's we've
That's
had a lot
a big
of work.
division.
It really is, yeah. There's more and more work every year in that area.
There's millions and millions of attacks every day. Every day.
Yeah. Thousands of attacks in one company.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how much is going on.
Yeah, people don't understand that. It's that.
Yep.
I'd like to talk about, you were 35 years in law enforcement. You started in Lowell as a patrolman.
Right.
And how do you like that?
I loved it. My dad was a cop in Lowell, so I followed in his footsteps.
Right.
And in 1978, 79, I came out. At the end of the year in 78, I came out. And I was walking a patrol route in the Towers Corner section of Lowell. So that's where I started, sort of making sure that there were no fights and the bars were closed at 2 o'clock and, you know, taking care of there was a lot of serious crime in Lowell, but there was also a lot of, they called it order maintenance crime, sort of quality of life things. So we paid attention to both of those things.
I see. And you started, you became superintendent of police in Lowell, Massachusetts, right? Is that correct?
Yep.
And you started a whole new concept called community policing?
Yes. Well, myself and people like Dick Johnson, who was the city manager at the time.
Okay, right.
Eileen Donahue, who was on the city council, who's now the city manager there. There was a significant crime problem in the city, and the conventional way of us dealing with it wasn't working. So we all got together, the leadership of the city, Brian Martin, who was the assistant city manager.
Right.
And we put a plan together to adopt this new concept of community policing, which I had been trained in at a class that I went through from a company, a think tank down in Washington.
Right.
But anyway, the bottom line was we tried some new concepts, and believe it or not, we had a 5% reduction in crime every year for 13 years.
Wow. Good
So
for you.
it worked very well.
Yeah. So that propelled. Let me ask you a question. Do any police officers from Lowell go to the FBI Academy
Yes.
for training?
Yes, every year. I've been twice, because depending on where I was working.
I
There's
see.
certain classes that they have for smaller city chiefs. They have other classes for large city chiefs. I've been through both of those. Then there's something called a National Academy, and we send either lieutenants and captains through that every year. So we usually get a spot every year in there. It's quite a few officers in Lowell are trained through the National Academy.
Now, does Lowell have a relationship and liaisons with the FBI in Boston, in the Boston office?
Oh yeah.
And there's a FBI office in Lowell, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, a small one.
It's a pretty good size
Oh,
now.
is it?
It used to
Yeah.
be just 2 agents
Yeah.
back in the 80s and 90s, but it's expanded now to there's got to be a dozen people there.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's a big operation. They don't just handle Lowell. They
No.
handle
I
everything
understand
on
that,
North
the
Shore.
Merrimack Valley. Yeah,
Right. But we have a very close working relationship. Crosby Brackett was just the they call that the RAC, the resident agent in charge. Crosby Brackett, whose dad was a local police officer, came from Tewksbury originally, worked as a police officer up in Hudson, New Hampshire, and has been a chief around. His son became an FBI agent and actually took over the Lowell office.
Oh, no kidding.
And he just got transferred down to Washington. I was
no
just
kidding.
at his transfer party. So the
Oh,
bottom
I
line
thought
is,
I had it in for my show to have an FBI agent come on.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
We have a very
Yeah.
close working relationship with the FBI, and Kelly Richardson, who is the chief in Lowell now, supports that. There's actually one officer who's been assigned full-time to the Joint Terrorism Task Force even before 9/11. So he's been there for over a decade, and he's working really important cases. Tom Daly is his name, and he just got a big award, national award, for the work he did in terrorism. So,
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So very close relationship. Yep.
You become commissioner of Boston Police because of your good work in Lowell, I presume.
Well, there was a process. You know,
Yeah,
I
understand.
had met with Mayor Menino in the years running up
see.
to the vacancy, and he had appointed a group led by David D'Alessandro, who was the president of Hancock Insurance, and it was really David that kind of reached out to me and asked me to apply. So
Right.
it was an interesting process, but it ultimately ended up in my being sworn in November of 2006.
Okay, so we get to April 15, 2013. You remember that day?
Yeah, I sure
Yes.
do. Yeah,
Yeah,
I sure do.
I'm sure we all did.
Life-changing for so many people.
Yeah, exactly. I was in Boston with my daughter. She had a medical appointment. They were working, and you know how that is. There's
Sure.
no traffic. It's a holiday in Boston, so we were in Boston, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Fire trucks, police cars, state police, everything's going on, and bingo. And so we went up to the Common, and we were about 2 blocks away because it was blocked off
Right.
to visually see it. Because I wanted to take my daughter to a situation like that to be prepared.
Yeah.
Down the road.
It's certainly an education.
Yeah, in education. And the police were getting ready at the Common. The state police were lined up with their cruisers, getting their rifles out or shotguns or whatever they had. And also there were attack forces between that street, between the Garden and the Common.
Yeah, Charles Street.
Charles Street. Yeah, they were set up there, and they were getting ready and so forth. So I just want to tell you this. So we walked by this restaurant, right? And I'm looking in, and I'm saying, wow, the plates are still on the table, and the beer bottle is still on the counter, and so forth. Everybody just scattered. I, realizing after I looked at it that, as soon as that happened, everybody took off,
Right.
and it probably was a stampede. Where were you when you first heard it?
I had been at the marathon at the finish line,
Okay.
got the governor in and out with his security detail. So I was there prior to anything happening,
Right.
making sure that the security was what it should be.
Right.
And then I had a call with the White House. I had to speak to Vice President Biden that morning.
Right.
So I went back to my home office to take the call. And it was after all the elite runners had come in. So it becomes just a regular marathon.
Right,
at that point
I've
in time.
been there
So-
many times.
Yeah, so it's a very much a
Routine.
Boston. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So went back to my house, took the call, and just as I was hanging up at the White House, Dan Linsky called me, my chief of department, and told me that the bombs had gone off. So I raced back downtown, and I was there in 5 or 6 minutes. The ambulances were still picking up the wounded. There were 2 bodies on the ground, Martin Richard, the 8-year-old boy that was
Right.
killed, and Lou Lindsay, who was a Chinese graduate student that was at BU. Crystal Campbell was at the first bomb,
Okay.
the seat of the first bomb, but her body had been moved, and so it was a chaotic,
Right.
hectic kind of a situation. Going back to what you said about people running.
Right.
One of the things that we noticed was that people just dropped their bags. They had handbags
Right.
and shopping bags and things like that. They were all over the course. And any one of them could have been another device. So our bomb squad had to come in very quickly and declare those things safe before we
Right.
could start the investigation. So, we went in and rescued the people, got the people out to the hospitals. There were 42 critically injured people in that attack, and everyone that left the scene survived, some with multiple amputations.
Do you think that because you had that medical tent there, that saved a lot of people's lives?
Yeah, the medical tents were really important because all those medical people came
Right.
down. But I think that it was the public response and the police and fire response that made an enormous difference in crafting what the heck they call it?
Aid or
crafting those. I'm blanking on
Okay,
but
it's
tying
right.
a rope or a belt
Oh,
around
a tourniquet.
A tourniquet,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Crafting those tourniquets, saving lives, stopping the flow of blood right at the scene by people who were just bystanders, people that were
Right.
were there. Interesting note: every Boston police officer carries a tourniquet now in his uniform.
Oh, no kidding,
He or
since that
she,
time.
yeah, they have to.
Oh, wow.
They have to
Is
have
that
tourniquets
just
with them.
Boston, or is that now?
It's national. It's
national
not every
now?
police department, but,
Okay.
but it's a national standard
Yeah,
right now.
and it's not that heavy. It's just,
No,
what is
no.
it, a rope, or is it some sort of cloth?
It's like a cloth,
A
and a device. to
That's a
twist
great
it.
idea.
Yeah, it really is. It
it's-
saves lives. It really
Yeah,
does. Yeah.
because I know when I was in the military, everybody had to have a bandage
Yep.
on their web belt,
Yep.
and it wasn't basically for you. It was basically for me. If something happened to me, they would take
Self-apply,
it. Yeah,
right,
self-applied.
yeah.
They would
Yep.
do that because everybody had one. It's a
Yeah.
great idea. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I mean, so we've learned a lot of lessons from that.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so you get down there, all hell breaks loose. You're coming down, you have security with you, I presume.
Yes, I had a security detail.
Yeah,
Yep.
with you, because of what happened. You don't know. You might be marked,
Right.
you know, and that type of thing, because we didn't
Right.
know what was happening, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we didn't know if they were going to be following.
So how did you
attacks.
shepherd the people away, and how did you control the situation? Because when I was in Boston, there were cruises, unmarked cruises, cruises coming in. Is that a bad thing to do, to bring them all into the city, or should they have been out in the suburbs
Yeah.
where there should have been, you know, impossible other bombings possibly, and they should have gone to that location?
Yeah, so I was at 9/11. I was at the World Trade Center about a week after the incident.
a week after,
And
okay.
I spoke to the officers that were involved in the initial response, and they all said that this situation of police and fire self-reporting is a major problem because it creates confusion.
Right.
So what you saw at the Boston Common was part of our plan, which was to establish a catchment point of all of the incoming volunteers and police responding
Right.
as a result of a call for assistance in one location. So Deputy Superintendent Cullum Lydon was at the bombing, put tourniquets on people, and then eventually came to the command post, and the first thing I assigned him to do was to go to the Boston Common and set up this catchment area. So all the incoming units were advised to report to the Boston Common so that they didn't come right to the bomb seat,
Right.
to the places where the evidence was all strewn around.
Right.
And then what that allowed us to do was to have a reserve of individuals that we could send out as other things were happening. We got 250 bomb calls in the next 4 days after
Wow.
this incident that had to be responded to and cleared. So people were terrified.
Yeah, there's no
The
doubt about
plan's
it.
so important, though.
Yeah, it is. You know, I talked to somebody who was in the state police, and I said, you should have had people on 128 or 95, not these days, but on in different, you know, like Burlington Mall and somebody at Peabody Mall, so they wouldn't all come in because there might be other incidents.
Yeah, the
that type of
concept
thing.
is exactly right.
Yeah.
But we thought that the attack was on Boston.
Right.
And so we wanted to have a reserve group as close as possible.
I see.
The first incident that happened was a major fire at the Kennedy Library. And we thought that was related to the bombing because of the nature of the fire. The fire
see.
department had trouble putting it out.
Oh.
So we dispatched a SWAT team there. We dispatched SWAT teams to the emergency rooms because,
Right, makes sense.
well, I mean, a lot of times these bombers will injure themselves in the bombing. So we didn't know if we had suspects in
I
those
see.
emergency rooms.
I see. Yeah, I'm learning the inner workings of
Yeah.
police.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of a sudden you have video of what happened, right?
Right.
And there's black hat, white hat.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that evolve? I mean,
Yeah,
when
that
you
was
saw white hat, black hat, you knew these guys had backpacks on their back.
Yeah, we did. We saw that when we first started to review the tapes.
Right.
It took a few days for us to do reviews of the tapes because it all had to be done manually. So
Right.
every download of tape from all over the area was brought to a central location at Black Falcon Terminal.
Oh God, that must have been difficult.
Well, it was
Yeah.
because we had to set up an analysis operation
Right.
that really didn't exist before the incident.
Does it now?
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah,
a lot.
good.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a
okay.
lot more capability.
Yeah,
Matter of
good.
fact, the FBI sent out an RFP a year after the bombing to increase their capabilities because they didn't have any at the time.
Right.
So we set up this makeshift command post where the tapes started to come in, and as they started to go through them, they were developing more and more information. On Thursday morning, I received a phone call at about 3 a.m. from my representative at the command post, who said that they have a tape and they need me to come in and see the tape. Then the FBI SAC, Rick Delorier, called me and he said, "What time can you get in the office? I want to show you the tape." Well, the mayor had me meeting President Obama, who was arriving for the memorial service that day
Right.
at Logan Airport. So Governor Patrick and I met the president and the delegation from Massachusetts at Air Force One.
Right.
And then immediately after that, I raced around the motorcade and I got through the tunnel and went to the
That's
FBI.
with sirens blowing and so on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got to FBI headquarters where we had moved the command post, and And that's when I first saw the tape of Joe Karsanayev. And coincidentally, Tamerlan, his brother, had walked through the tape earlier, but no one recognized that he was a bad guy at that point in time. It was Tamerlan's actions right at that camera that made it clear that he had a bomb and he had put it down behind the Richard family.
If you see anybody with a backpack and they leave it down, call the police right away.
Yeah.
And just, or any type of device anywhere
Yep.
that you think that there's a bomb, call the police.
Yeah,
let them
to
resolve.
see something, say something is really a good idea.
Right. It doesn't matter, even if you go through customs and you see something that's not right, speak up.
Yep.
Anything anything that you might see that it may not be correct, but at least we're checking on it and saving lives. So what happens? Black hat, white hat, resolved. We knew who it was, and now we have the tapes. What do we do with the tapes? What was the argument between you guys?
Yeah. Well, there was a group of people that didn't want to release the tapes to the public. I argued against that, wanting to release the tapes because, the Red Sox were playing, the Celtics were playing. We had to give people a chance to see who the bad guy was so that they could protect themselves. I wasn't going to hide that. The prosecutors and some of the detectives wanted to keep it to themselves, but I adamantly opposed that. So after about 12 hours of debate,
and you were heavily for release.
Yeah, I was. Rick Delorier called and said, "You're right. We're going to release them today." So later that day, we got the tapes out, and eventually that led to them activating themselves. And tragically, Sean Collier was killed as a result of their trying to get another firearm. But they were trying to get to a transit stop, a subway stop in New York, to blow up a lot of innocent people.
I mean, are you sure of that? Or
there's no question. There is absolutely no question.
So they hijacked that car? Was that the object to take that car to New York?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Danny was driving that car.
Yeah,
was
the
an
poor
MIT
kid.
student.
Yeah.
And it was his very measured response and courage in breaking away from these suspects who were going to kill him. He got away from them.
And ran into the garage and said, call them.
Yeah, ran into the gas station, told us. And it was actually able to tell us the GPS number on his car so that we could track his car. And that's how we ended up catching them so quickly, is because of the tremendous work and memory of Danny.
Is it GPS because his phone was still in the car?
No, he had just bought a new Mercedes-Benz SUV.
Okay, so it was built into the car.
And he knew the 8-digit number off the top of his head.
Wow, he was that bright.
Yeah, and we asked him how he knew, and he said, well, I go to MIT. He remembers numbers.
Wow. So, in other words, if they went to Harvard or BU,
probably wouldn't have done it. Certainly, if I had that car, I wouldn't have done it.
Definitely. Wow, it's good to know your number. I mean, I don't even know my number, but go ahead.
Yeah.
And then all hell broke loose in Watertown.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Now, I want to tell you, that it was shelter in place. It was unusual to ask people to shelter in place. I got phone calls from all over the country because you guys said shelter in place. And everybody was pissed off at the Boston police and the FBI because their rights were controlled. So I want to let you know that, be careful when you say shelter in place. People get upset. I mean, I had somebody call me from the Virgin Islands.
Well, you can send them a message from me.
Okay.
Tough.
Okay.
So here's the way I look at it, right?
Yeah.
The week before this incident happened, we told people to stay home because there was a snowstorm. And people sheltered in place during the snowstorm.
That's right.
This was simply another decision that was made by Governor Deval Patrick, very liberal governor, and Mayor Thomas Menino, very liberal Democratic mayor, who said this is the right thing to do to protect the people. So there's a lot, every time you get into a conversation about, my rights, and I understand, like, nobody protected constitutional rights more than I did over the course of my career. But there are times when, if you don't want more people hurt, you have to do things that bump up against that. Right, exactly. The safety of the public should, listen,
Even with health issues, but that's another story.
Well, let me tell you, if that goes wrong, you'll see a lot of complaining about rights. But the truth of the matter is, this public safety is one of the first things called for in the Constitution,
right?
And that's what you revert back to.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to tell that guy.
Yep, call him up. Call him up.
Okay, yeah. So there's a shootout goes. And somebody gets killed or run over by his brother. Is that
Yes.
Is that the facts?
Well, he was shot 6 times in the chest by the police.
Oh, he was.
And then he was run over by the brother.
I see. Okay.
So he would have expired as a result of the shooting. But he was still alive when he was hit by the car.
I see. So what happens to the younger brother, Tamerlan?
Tamerlan.
Yeah.
He gets away. He drives the car 4 or 5 blocks up a hill in Watertown. And we're on the car very quickly, but he's escaped the car. The door is open. Right. He's run into the yards. And so we set up a perimeter, a 20-block perimeter around the last place we saw him. Mm-hmm. And during the course of the night, we brought SWAT teams in from all over New England, and they very slowly and methodically collapsed that perimeter until they had searched everything.
And you were ready to give up the search, and somebody called you and said, there's a guy in the boat?
Yeah, we were not giving up the search, just so you understand the dynamic of it. It was a very interesting issue.
Yeah.
We had done that lockdown, and the president was concerned about it. President Obama called Governor Patrick, and he said to the governor, when are you going to end this? He said, we can't go on.
You mean the shelter in place?
Right.
Okay.
We can't go on. And so the governor said, well, we just want to finish the search. And he said, let's get this over with. So Governor Patrick came down and said, we've got to end this. So our guys hadn't completely finished the searching. It was almost done, but there was a political desire to sort of
resolve
call it.
This.
Yeah. And so we did that without any argument. We say, yeah, we can finish up the checking ourselves. But during the course of that finishing up, that's when we got the call from the gentleman who saw Joe Carr in the boat. And funny, he was staying in his house until that was lifted. So when it was lifted, almost immediately the public ended up being the key person in the search. You know.
Mm-hmm. I have 2 minutes. So what happened?
Well, they got him. You know, he was hiding in the boat, and he had confessed. He had
wounds, didn't he?
Yeah, he'd been shot in the mouth.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of gunfire because they thought he was shooting at them. Right. But he survived it. Yeah. And he also, what's important from an evidence perspective is he wrote a
confession.
He wrote a confession inside the boat. And so that section of the boat was cut out and brought into court. And
no kidding.
Yeah, and it basically showed that he was confessing to terrorism, to hating the United States because of philosophical reasons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they
cut out the boat. What happened to the guy? Did he get a new boat?
Well, he never actually got. The FBI said they were going to buy him a new boat, and they didn't.
No kidding.
But I talked to him years later. He ended up getting some people pitched in, and he got a bigger, nicer boat.
Oh, okay.
It's all worked out well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, so the moral of the story: he was found guilty.
Yeah, he was found guilty. He's on death row.
He's death row.
In Supermax.
And now
in
there's
Colorado.
appeals.
Yes, he has appeals. They're going on right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, right. So hopefully, you have a right to appeal in this country. So that's what he's going
especially
through
a death penalty case, especially a capital case.
And now there's talk about moving the venue from Boston to someplace else, or it should have been, or it shouldn't have been, or
there's always that argument that the jury pool was tainted. So there's a couple of issues that they're hanging their hat on. It remains to be seen what the courts will do with it, but we'll see. We just have to go through it.
Ed Davis, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's great to see you.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Nice seeing you.